Hello friends of the electrified charging fun, and welcome to Speicher elektrisiert, your channel all around Skoda's e-mobility and the Skoda ENYAQ. My name is Matthias and I am selling this ENYAQ. Yes, you heard that right. After 2.5 years with this car, you are watching the last video with my red ATX, because it's gone for good. And this is a good opportunity to review the last 2.5 years, as I already did after 1 year with my famous 1-year Skoda ENYAQ review. We look at the good and we look at the bad and the ugly stuff. All the adventures and experiences we had, most of them well documented on this channel here, and since the relaunch of the channel also in English video versions. This is of course very personal, because this is my experience, this is what happens to me, and your experience might differ. So write me in the comments if you see stuff different than I. And now let's kick it off and watch at the different topics. And now let's look where we are with an ENYAQ which is 2.5 years old and has a mileage of around 42,000 kilometers. Let's start with the body, the hardware, all the workshop dealership stays the car had and the problems, and the general usage or the optic of the car after 2.5 years. So basically, well, let's start with how the car looks inside after the usage, and let's look at mainly two parts. This is the seating and the fabric and all those glossy plastic pieces. And if you look at the driver's seat right here, you see, yes, there is some, you see here in the leather some markings of the usage, but look at the fabric. It's quite well. You don't see much of any usage there, and I really use the car often. So basically it looks quite well after 2.5 years. Same goes with the steering wheel. If you look at the steering wheel, you don't see any wear-offs. Why should it? After 2.5 years, you shouldn't see anything. And now let's look at the glossy parts down here. You will notice that they still look good. I didn't clean the car, so basically this is how it looks in everyday life. And yeah, you've got some wearing here of the usage and stuff like this, but well, to be honest, it looks really well. So basically, yes, there is still some smaller scratches down in the trunk of usage, but yeah, this is what I expect from a car after 2.5 years. The paint is still great, and yes, it still looks like a nearly new car. Now let's talk a bit about the hardware, and most of the hardware I really like. I like the motor, the battery, own chapter here in the video is a really good one. And it's a really well made and well built car, and I don't have any problems with the hardware. Well, at least not with most of it. There are two things I do not like. The first one is the sound system, if you want to call it a sound system, because it isn't one. When I bought my ENYAQ, the Canton sound system wasn't available, which I heard is also not that great. So I have the standard. And the standard, yes, you can listen to music with it, but it doesn't sound good at all. So there I would wish for something better. And the other thing is the DCC. I've got this adaptive suspension stuff, but to be honest, I don't notice any change if I slide from comfort to sport. For me, everything feels the same. Maybe I'm not sensitive enough for this, but yeah, that was money not so well spent, I would say. But the rest is really good. Or look here, look at the brakes. When I changed to my summer tires only a few hundred kilometers ago, this is how they look. They look really new. Look at the thickness of the brake pads. This is really great. After 42,000 kilometers, there is no reason to do anything with the brakes. They are in really good shape and condition. Now let's talk about the stays at the dealership and the problems they had to fix. Well, the first one was directly when I drove from the dealership on the highway, because the steering wheel was quite odd. I had to put it really into some right position, something like this you see here, not that extreme, but like this, because the track was not fine. So they had to correct it immediately. After that, it was really well. And then the projection of the Skoda logo from the rear mirrors, from the outside mirrors, broke. This is a favorite. Most ENYAQs experience something like that. They fixed it just once for me, and after that I never had any problems of water getting into the mirrors and destroying this projection. Then I was at the dealership for the big update of software version 3.0, which was a quite long stay, but in the end it worked out. Then I had a service also. Videos on everything of this is on this channel here, so just have a look. Then I had the service. They didn't find anything which they need to repair. And then I had the software update of version 3.2. Due to some issues, I reported to them and they decided to do the update. But when I round and thumb everything of this up, when it comes to hardware and workshop stays, this is a quite good car with really no hassles. One topic often discussed by ENYAQ owners and those who are interested in an ENYAQ is battery and range. When it comes to the battery, we are talking about the degradation, so the loss of capacity over time. When we talk about range, most people are interested in what happens in winter times. How much of range do you lose? Well, first off, let's talk about range. When it comes to my driving profile, which means I drive city and country road and highway as well, and I'm not the one who's constantly driving 140 kilometers or something on the highway, so it's highly dependent on how high is your consumption. Well, if I'm talking about my driving profile and summertime, I'm talking about 460 kilometers of range when I charge my ENYAQ to 100%. So in everyday life, if I charge up to 80%, we are talking about 370 kilometers of range. And when we talk about the long distance traveling, where I drive mainly on the highway with 120 or 130 kilometers an hour, we talk about when I charge to 80% of around 300 kilometers of range until I have to charge. It's a whole different story if we look at winter times. In winter times, range really goes low, even though I have a heat pump. And when I charge in winter times to 100%, we are talking about 300 kilometers of range. Yes, that's it. And if I charge every day to 80%, we are talking about 240 to 250 kilometers of range, not more. This is not much. Of course, this is because in winter times consumption is a bit higher because you have more heating and stuff like that, but it is mainly because of the temperature of the battery. Because the battery is colder, and that is the reason. And here the missing preheating kicks in. It kicks in different ways. We talk about that in a different chapter of this video, but in winter times it's not that much fun driving an ENYAQ. But it is as it is. And overall it works quite well. Now let's talk about the battery and the degradation. This is a huge and high discussed topic, and to be honest, I don't want to go into every nitty-gritty details here because there are several videos on this channel where I discuss this topic in detail. Basically, if we talk about my ENYAQ, we talk about a car with a 77 kilowatt hours battery. And if we look at this, we may see how much of capacity got lost over time. And there are two ways to look at this. First, there's a certificate you can do at the Skoda dealership. And this is the document which counts when it comes to degradation. Or you could try to do it on your own. And if you do it on your own, you might want to use the car scanner app and the OBD adapter, because there is a value in it which is named maximum energy content of the traction battery. And with this value, we do not know what it exactly shows. So basically, we do not know if this is the correct value, but it has become some gold standard in the community. I don't know why, but let's take it and let's have a look. And there you go. It is, for my car, 71,250 watt hours. And you can also see how much I charged and discharged over 2.5 years. We are talking about 11,000 kilowatts of a charge. And now what? First off, this value there is dependent on the temperature of the battery. If you watch the German video, it was 50 watt hours less. So basically, if the battery got warmer, this value goes up. And this value is now not where it would be when the battery would have 30 degrees. If you look at this well, you've got a difference of 5.8 kilowatt hours to 77, which would be 100%, which leads to 7.5% degradation. I'm not sure that this car has this, but I did already a Skoda battery certificate which states 95% SOH, so state of health of the battery. Could be, must not be. But is this really important, this technical stuff? Or is it more important if you notice this in everyday life? Because when it comes to driving, I do not notice this degradation. I still have the feeling that I have the same range as I bought the car. Now let's dig into the topic which is the most controversial discussed one in the ENYAQ community: software. And basically, if you are reading or listening to influencers and to the press and even to me, you might think the software is all bad in the ENYAQ. But this is not true. You have to look at this from different perspectives. Not all is good, not all is bad with this software. So let's try to make a differentiated approach on this topic, and we start out when I got that car. I got that car in December 2021, and back in the days the software did not even have a name. Now it's known as software version 2 or ME2. But back in the day it didn't have this name, and to be honest, ME2 was a really bad software. A lot of bugs, a lot of issues, and especially a charge planning which was barely usable. It was, to be honest, crap. And I drove with this software version for around a year. There was no update because, to be honest, over-the-air updates didn't work. You don't got any updates. There weren't simply any updates as promised. And then in August and September 2022, there was the big update campaign on ME 3.0. You had to go to the dealership for that. And they updated my car. And this was a huge improvement. Of course, this software was not top-notch. Don't get me wrong. And at that time, there were higher versions available in newer ENYAQs. But 3.0 solved a lot of issues and fixed charge planning. I had a video on this channel. You can now operate that car. Of course, also ME 3.0 was not perfect. And still, you did not got any over-the-air updates. And the reason why I am now on 3.2 was just a couple of weeks ago I was at the dealership with some issues and got updated again at the dealership to 3.2. But this is not the latest version. The latest version of the software cycle 3 is 3.7. And nobody knows if this ENYAQ here will ever get this software version. And they still are not able to provide over-the-air updates, and their versioning is a mess. You simply do not know what software version do you have in your car. Sometimes they have new versions, sometimes they don't. Yes, you get over-the-air updates, but not of the major software. You got them for the apps and smaller stuff. And yes, they still try to find out on how to update your car to newer versions. And yes, so basically the whole software update is not really working at Skoda. And if I look at this software version 3.2 right now, there's light and there's shadow. First, let's talk about the shadows of the software. And then, first off, there's the responsiveness of the software, or the lack of responsiveness. I really hate it to wait until the software is booted. Animations are lagging, and sometimes you tap on a button and have to wait for 10 seconds. This is just annoying as the OK button on every drive you do. Then let's step over to the profiles. There are profiles which should store and save some settings, but they don't save and store all settings. For example, you can't store the head-up display position in your profile. And when it comes to different drivers of a car, this would be highly beneficial. So the profiles are mainly of no use, at least for me, because they simply do not store enough settings. And a huge bummer for me, especially because I live in Switzerland in the mountains, is that when you do a charge planning, it does not take the height into account. So basically it does its calculation as if the complete route would be flat. And then you go on an alpine pass, drove up, consumption goes up, and Laura panics. And Laura starts telling you, whoa, you don't have enough energy to reach your destination. And yeah, when you're on top of the alpine pass, I really had it that she wants to charge up there. And then you drove down on the other side, and then Laura calms down and everything is fine, because now you're regenerating a lot of energy, consumption goes down, and more often Laura has the same charge planning afterwards as she had before. And this is just hugely annoying and irritating. And well, let's move to the most important part of the things in the software which are really bad, and that is the missing preheating. I don't talk in the battery chapter about it, I talk in the software chapter about it, because in the ENYAQ it's simply a software issue. A well-conditioned battery is one of the most beneficial things when it comes to electromobility, when it comes to range and charging speed. The ENYAQ has everything in the car. The hardware is there. It can cool the battery and it can heat the battery. But the software is not there to control it. And this leads to poor charging power in winter, but this is not the only issue. Preheating is a very beneficial thing in a lot of situations. In wintertime especially, but it is always good to have a well-conditioned battery, because the aging of the battery and though the capacity loss is much smaller when it's well conditioned. Also, when you do not hit the charger with an optimal SOC, you get a bad charging experience. Mainly because charging speed depends on the state of charge of your battery, the lower the better, and on the temperature of the battery. The higher the better until a certain amount. So for the ATX, this battery loves to be heated up to 27 to 30 degrees Celsius. Then you get the best charging experience. And as of now, with such an ENYAQ, you have to hit a fast charger with a low SOC. Mainly, to be honest, the best would be 3% or 5%. But this is inconvenient for a lot of drivers because they fear that they don't have enough range to reach the charger. And if your SOC is higher and the battery temperature is not optimal, you do not get the best charging experience. You have a lower charging speed. So having preheating in this situation, let's say you hit the charger with 20% SOC, but you have a well-conditioned battery at 30 degrees, would lead to a much better charging experience. So not having preheating is something which is really bad for the ENYAQ. And now let's move over to the good stuff. Because if I sum everything up and look at the software version 3.2 I would recommend to get this. I have a video where I show you a way you might get the software, but I hope Skoda will at whatever point update the car. This is another thing, before I move on, this is another thing I really criticize. Why isn't Skoda able to communicate with us? Why can't they tell us when updates will come or why updates don't come, where the problems are? Speak to us, Skoda. We want to know. We could even accept if you tell us, well, we thought we could release it in calendar week whatsoever, but there were certain problems with the control unit. That is why blah, 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 blah. But you do not talk with us. You do not communicate. But this is not right. You are communicating. You're just not saying anything. Well, okay. This is another thing, but let's move on. Software version 3.2, the really good software overall. You can operate the car quite well with it. I don't have much issues. I don't have any crashes. And the charge planning works more or less. So basically, there are a lot of cars out there with software which is worse than the ENYAQ's software. And there are a lot of cars out there where the software might be a bit better. But no matter to whom you talk, everyone is complaining about the software, no matter the manufacturer of the car. But when I sum this up, the software is the weak spot of the ENYAQ. And I see I say this after 2.5 years now. I already said that in my review video 1 year ago. And if Skoda really wants to improve on the ENYAQ, well, then it comes to software and software and software. One thing that also belongs to a review video, especially if you sell such a car, are all the adventures and experience I had with this. Because it is a highly emotional thing and you were part of it. Because most of it is documented on this channel in videos. You could see what I experienced with the car. And this is a lot. I mean, let's talk about long distance driving. And maybe my road trip, 1,300 kilometers to Mlada Boleslav, documented on the channel. And I did so much long haul driving, so much long distance driving. And all the horror stories you hear before you do that. And I never had a problem with this. Yes, with the early software, it was not great. And you needed some third-party apps to find chargers. And it worked. It didn't work great, but it worked. And after the update to software version 3 and especially 3.2, charge planning is usable in the ENYAQ. More usable even than in other cars. But there are also other cars which are way better than the ENYAQ. But basically, long distance driving is really no problem in this car. And I really love it. And another thing, think about all my camping videos with the simulated camp mode, where we tried how to keep the ENYAQ alive in the night. So you got heating. Think of the one in the mountains here, in the Swiss mountains, also documented here on the channel, where I had a great sleep in the car whilst it was I guess it was -7 or -10 degrees outside. Yes, and a lot of more camping videos. A lot of memories I have here in combination with this car. Great memories. Or think about all the technical detailed videos where we did deep dives into the shallow waters of the technical stuff of this car, not documented by Skoda, where we learned so much on how this car behaves, on how we could operate the car better. And all the tips and tricks videos I did about that. Yes, highly appreciated videos, often watched on this channel. And basically think of everything of this which led me to visit Mlada Boleslav, visit the company, have a great time there, talk to the people. A lot of memories, 2.5 years well documented on this channel, and overwhelmingly positive memories with only a few bad ones. One thing that is constantly with me since I've got this ENYAQ is this channel you're watching this video on. Because I launched my YouTube channel nearly 3 years ago when I had the first ENYAQ to test and to do a test drive over 2 weeks, after which I've ordered my red ATX. And so basically this channel is really tied to my car. And this channel, this is 129 videos solely about the ENYAQ. And you can put this video on top of it, so you have got 130 or 131 videos if you count the German version also in it. Only ENYAQ. And this YouTube channel, let's dig a bit into the numbers, is 2.3 million views of videos since its start back 3 years ago. And this is nearly 15,000 subscriptions. And look at some videos where I am talking about the community favorite topics like reviews or software, which reaches up to 40, 50, 80 or nearly 100,000 views. And considering that there are around 200,000 ENYAQs on the road, this has a huge reach. That's why I have contact with Mlada Boleslav, with Skoda in Mlada Boleslav, with the company. And that's why they sometimes provide me information. Not that much as I would like to have or you would like to hear, but hey, at least this channel has a huge community and it works well. And if we are talking about this channel, let's talk about money. Over the course of 3 years, this channel made me 15,000 Swiss francs. And this may sound a lot, but consider that is over the course of 3 years and with 131 videos. And basically you can say this is at least 1,500 hours of work. Maybe it's 2,000 hours, I don't know, I don't count the hours. But considering a video from the idea over the script, over the recording, over the editing, uploading, and then also interacting with the community in the comments and emails, you can say roughly 10 hours a video. And yes, this is a lot of work, but it is a great thing to have because I love this channel, and I love this channel because of you, the community. You count, and I really love the interaction with you, and that's why this channel will exist even further after selling my ENYAQ. And now what? That might be the question in your head. You will keep your channel, but what car do we see? And yeah, that is a very valid point. And now that I sold my ENYAQ, I took a look at the market, and look at me. I'm that guy mid-40 who drives SUVs, is such an urban outdoor guy, like who gets triggered by such models. Yeah, I'm not into station wagons, I'm not into some sedans or stuff like that. I'm the SUV guy. So I look at SUVs at the market, and if I do right now, I see something like the Polestar 3, which triggers me really hard that this is an awesome car. But it doesn't stop there. I'm also very curious what the Juniper model, so the facelift of the Model Y, will bring to us. Despite what you think about the owner of the company or the company itself, I'm interested in that car. And also, I love cars like the EV9, but this is a bit too big for me. I would love to see a smaller one here, but sadly there isn't one. And also, let's look at the BYD Seal U, a great car. And I have also to consider what is available here in Switzerland, because I do not get all the cars. The list doesn't end here. Well, the Ford Explorer Electric. I'm really interested in that car. I'm curious what Ford did on the platform the Skoda is on. And you can look at a lot of other models there, and you will find great cars. But you will also see another thing, and that is that the ENYAQ itself keeps really good up in this game and is still a car to consider, especially if you think about the new model year 2024 and what will come with the model year 25. Think of the new ID.3 GTX, what Volkswagen presented to us. So let's stay curious what Skoda will bring to the market. And to be honest, what they have on the market already is a very competitive car. And what I'm also interested in is what will Skoda bring with the new facelift, so the new model of the ENYAQ, when they apply the modern solid design. I really would love to know more about this car, and maybe Skoda, you are watching this video, because to be honest, I'm very sure you are watching this video. Let me have a backstage look, please, will ya? I would love to see. And you might say, I would love to know what car will you bring to the channel. So do I stay subscribed? Do I want to watch your videos in the future? To be honest, I bet you will. So I won't tell you today what the next car on this channel will be, but write me your guesses down in the comments. I think it's not that very hard to think about it. And next week I will reveal my new car. You will know what will happen, and we will see each other in that video. And until then, stay full of energy.